Guidance is internal. Ignition sequence starts. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Permission to board. Permission to come aboard. Permission to board. Permission to bring me aboard. Permission to come aboard.
Welcome to the Permission Granted podcast. Here's DA.
All right, welcome inside the freshest edition of the Permission Granted podcast, everybody. Thanks so much for being with us. A little reminder that along with our normal full show podcast, which are the show, but just no commercials, so it's awesome, you can also get this all off the air stuff, okay? So simply subscribe by going to either iTunes or SoundCloud. Search The DA Show, CBS Sports, and you'll find it. Get it completely for free. Or we put all of these on YouTube as well, youtube.com/The DA Show. A little bit later on in the podcast, Mraz will join me. We will discuss this epic weekend of sports coming up here. Also, we shall discuss what a disgrace he is as a head coach of a flag football team that unbelievably is 2-1 with a winning record despite getting almost no coaching out of the coordinator slots or the head coaching slot. But now it's time to welcome on a good friend of mine. He is the purveyor of the Peel the Onion podcast, a guy that covers Denver sports right now, and you can follow him on Twitter at BK Denver Sports, longtime friend of mine, Brandon Krizstal. And I always want to say Krizstal, then I have to go Krizstal because, BK, it seems like you've been changing your pronunciation on this last name for years now.
DA, it's not really up to me. It's my family. And in Texas, where I went to high school, it somehow got dumbed down. But as my family moved from Argentina to America, it was Krizstal in Kansas City and in most places. So right now, my sister is the only person that still says Krizstal. Everybody else kind of says Krizstal.
So this is a little bit like when I took the job at 61 Sports at that point in time in Kansas City, where you and I first met, and Amendolara was a little bit too ethnic for them. So they went through a series of trial runs of different names they could call me, and one was dropping the Dolara off of it and just going with Damon Amen or Damon Amen. Shockingly,
every one of those execs that was there then is no longer in their current role.
Yeah, right.
So,
yeah.
I mean, the marketing wizards that they were, it didn't work out for them. And I think you made the right decision. Really, DA, for folks that can't handle pronouncing or remembering Amendolara, I think that's still the safest bet. And I go by BK as much as I go by anything else, especially here in town, just because it kind of stuck, and people are dumb. So it's easy to make things short and simple for them.
So the initials are working out for you as well?
Yeah, not to the level they are for you,
sure.
But, I'm making inroads.
Okay, that's good. Hey, NBA postseason wanted to ask you about. Number one, did you think the Kelly Olynyk play was dirty? I mean, the fact is that Kevin Love is now done for the entire postseason, out 4 to 6 months. I got a tough time believing that Olynyk only deserves to get 1-game suspension next year.
Yeah, and I don't know how Adam Silver has shown a little more common sense than most commissioners, especially early on in his tenure. So maybe they can up it to 5, but, what are you going to do? You're going to sit him for half the season? I do think there was malice there. Seeing the different angles of the replay, he could have untangled his arm pretty quickly. If you played basketball before, you know how when you're frustrated, you can stay locked up with somebody. We see it a lot of times when guys will be fighting for a rebound and they end up on the floor and neither one wants to let go, or one maybe holding on a little longer even though he knows the foul is going to be called on him. So I thought it was pretty weak from Olynyk to put Love in that situation. And then a little soft from the NBA to only give him that 1 game. They didn't know that it was going to be perhaps 4 to 6 months that Love would be out, and he'd definitely be out the rest of the playoffs. So I'm not sure how they'll handle it retroactively. But in general, I thought it should have been a little more severe, the penalty, because I did think it looked like there was intent or malice once he had Love's arm locked up.
Well, isn't it wild that play might prevent the Celtics from getting Kevin Love? I mean, I guess I never really felt that it was a real opportunity anyway, that he would always go to a place like the Lakers in the offseason if he doesn't stay in Cleveland for the money. But it seemed like at least Wojnarowski was reporting that the Celtics were becoming a favorite. Now, would Kevin Love want to go to the place that ended his season for 4 to 6 months?
See, my feeling with Love has always been that he was going to stick it out in Cleveland for 2 years, because I think it's his option this year, or he can sign a 1-year deal at whatever money they want to pay him, same money that they were giving him. And then next year when the salary cap's supposed to jump up so significantly to go from, 63, 65 million up to upwards of 88, even as high as 92, we've heard, then he can take big money in places like LA or New York or even Boston or stay in Cleveland, but have a lot more flexibility rather than signing a 5-year deal now. If you were to go to Boston, just stay with Cleveland one more year, figure out how it's going to work with LeBron or Kyrie, or decide that it's just not. But I never thought that he was going to leave this year, and maybe the Olynyk play just keeps him from going to Boston next year. And, yeah, that'd be unfortunate, but look, these guys are playing for now, and Olynyk was playing hard and I think made a boneheaded play. But if that keeps Kevin Love from coming there, then I guess some of it's on Olynyk.
That's it. I mean, at this point, it kind of makes sense for Love to stick around again, right? Because he's damaged goods now. You don't know how he's going to return. This wasn't a great season anyway. Kind of feels like even though the Cavaliers lose him for this postseason run, they probably gain him for an extra year because of this, right?
Yeah, if I'm Kevin Love, the one thing that I tell them is, look, I definitely want to stay this year. I really want to stay and ride this out with LeBron and Kyrie, but let's run some stuff to get me the ball on the block. I know that Charles and Kenny and Shaq on their postgame show can be goofy and you don't always have to agree with their basketball analysis, but when all three of them in agreement say that Kevin Love's being used wrong because he's only being used as a stretch four and isn't getting any opportunity to operate on the block, I think they're right. I mean, he's not Kevin McHale, but he does have an array of moves. He's proven that he can score down there. And because the center in this case is Timofey Mozgov, or let's play it out, even if it's a healthy Anderson Varejao, that player doesn't have to hang around the block. They can float to the high post and then crash boards or set screens on the backside, but give Love room to operate. And because LeBron's not going in the post as much as he has in the past. So I think for Love to stay in Cleveland, he at least needs to talk David Blatt or whomever the coach ends up being, if Blatt gets let go after a year, into working him into the offense in the little block a little more. Because I do think he's still a top 10, top 20 player, and if they can figure out how to use him 100% the right way, then they'll just cruise.
Yeah, I'm not convinced, though, that he wants to be within that franchise, that he needs to be around LeBron. I think that Love is the type of guy that seems like he wants to be the alpha male somewhere, and I think this was kind of the timing was good, that he wanted to get out of Minnesota and that LeBron wanted him. But do you really feel after this year that he goes, man, I want to ride this out with LeBron? I kind of feel like he couldn't care less if he's with LeBron.
Yeah, I think if he's smart, he tells him that's where he's leaning, and then he plays one more year, like you mentioned, damaged goods, tries to get a ring out of it, tries to maybe focus on his production a little bit more, and he'll be more comfortable in year two. Everyone always is. Very few people are like J.R. Smith where they just roll in and they're like, I'm just going to shoot. I don't really care what team I'm on or what the plays are. And so I think that if he's smart, he does that and then goes and gets really big money next year because those max deals are going to be even higher with the new salary cap.
Yeah. LaMarcus Aldridge, I don't know if he's going to stick around in Portland, but I wanted to ask you about Dallas since you're a Dallas native. Aldridge is a Dallas product, and the high school basketball in Dallas and the Metroplex has exploded over the last 10 to 15 years. What was the difference there? Why did suddenly Dallas become one of the great hotbeds we have for basketball talent?
Well, I think there were a couple of things. One of the biggest is just the population growth. When I was growing up in Dallas and I graduated high school in 96, Darren Williams was a couple of years behind me. He played at a school called the Colony in an area of town called McKinney, right on the edge of McKinney and Louisville. On the north part of Dallas, there's a town called Plano that people have heard of. That was kind of where the town stopped. And then anybody who lived out there, it was few and far between. And there was one school out there, the Colony, and a couple more in Louisville. Now in McKinney and Frisco, there are 9 high schools that weren't there as late as the late 90s. So in 15 years, you've had that influx of population. So you get guys like the Harrison twins and Julius Randle, and I could go down the list. I mean,
so
LaMarcus
this is all
Aldridge,
talent that's coming out of the suburbs. Like when you think about New York City.
LaMarcus Aldridge is from the city. It's worth noting he's from South Dallas, and that has produced players over the years. Guys like Larry Johnson, who's from East Dallas, Grandmama, he's obviously at the top of the list based on how good he was as an All-American coming out of high school, and then we know where he went, UNLV, and obviously a great pro career for LJ. But it's just grown because the population has grown, and because of the growth of AAU and the money that's in Dallas and AAU teams that can field good teams and put the good kids together. Sure, you have kids that are still playing football, and Texas is always going to be a football hotbed. It's always going to be a baseball hotbed because kids can play year-round, and there's so many programs out there. But that's what you've seen is just the growth in population has allowed basketball, the level of basketball to grow. I think it's grown all over the country. I mean, I live here in Denver, and Chauncey Billups runs an elite academy here, and there's a couple of really good AAU teams here. A kid named Deron Davis, who you need to keep track of. He's going to be a McDonald's All-American. He's going to be a senior next year, a 6'10" power forward. When Chauncey was in high school, and he's 2 years older than me, when he was in high school, he had to go to Oakland to play in the summer because he just couldn't get good enough players here in Denver around him. And so the game has grown, but with the population explosion in Dallas, that's what's allowed kids to come along to where Texas is getting stocked every year, A&M, and then you get, I mean, the Harrison twins and Randall end up at Kentucky, and they're all from Texas as well.
I don't think that LaMarcus Aldridge is staying in Portland. I don't know. I know there's more years and more money there. I got a sense that he wants a better place to try to win, and that this early exit yet again for Portland's not going to help matters.
Yeah, for him, it might feel like he's just gotten to the end of the rope there, where you gave it your best run. I mean, you're in New York, and you see what it is with Melo. But when Carmelo Anthony was ready to move on in Denver, it got to the point where I was like, well, good riddance. We know what you are. You can really score. That's fine. You're not the best team guy. You don't really ever want to play defense. When you rebound, it's just because you're near the ball. It's not because you actively try to rebound. You don't pass the ball ever. And so I think that they like LaMarcus Aldridge a lot more in Portland. But I think you'll get to the point where you say, we've got Damian Lillard, we've got McCollum coming on, we've got other young pieces, and we've seemed to just add some talent that maybe it's just time you let LaMarcus Aldridge head on his way.
Oh, I think they want him. I think they want him desperately. I think he doesn't want to stay.
Yeah, no, you're probably right. I mean, that's probably how he looks at it. But I think that they'll get over it more quickly is my point, once he decides he wants to leave. I mean, Denver would have kept Carmelo Anthony. He'd still be here if he wanted to be here. They wouldn't have cut him at any point or traded him unwillingly. But you know what I'm saying? Once the guy makes up their mind, I think fans will realize that it's going to happen in Oklahoma City with Kevin Durant next year too. You
think he's leaving?
Yeah, and I don't think he's going right to D.C. despite what people expect. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up on one of the two L.A. teams. Again, it's overlooked or underreported at this point, and maybe as the summer rolls on after the season ends, if that salary cap, the owners don't end up locking the players out, if that salary cap goes up by $20 to $25 million, it's going to be hard to keep players in places they don't want to be, and guys are going to go get big money in a lot of places.
Do you think Billy Donovan in OKC works? I'm dubious.
I mean, look, he's coached a lot of pros, and he's gotten pros to Gainesville, Florida, which isn't Durham or Chapel Hill, North Carolina, or Lawrence, Kansas, or even L.A. or Bloomington, Indiana. I mean, we know that Gainesville, Florida is a football school, first, second, and third. And, the basketball team's winning. Sure, we'll go to the games. We got 30,000, 40,000 kids on campus. We'll go watch some NBA talent, not just because Kentucky's coming to town that one time a year. So we know he's got the pedigree, right? And he knows how to coach. And unlike a lot of college coaches that have jumped to the pros, Brad Stevens is a hell of a coach, if we're seeing it. It wasn't like they had a great record this year, but the East is so bad they got in. But look at the talent that he had on that roster versus what Billy Donovan, even if it's only for a year or two, he gets to step in and have an MVP from a year ago. We'll see how the split is. A guy who could have been an MVP this year if the ball bounced his way a little bit more and if Durant would have been there with him along the way. A top 5 defensive player, if not even higher than that, in Ibaka, and other good pieces around him, and a GM that's shown that he can, other than letting James Harden walk, can make the right moves and put a good team in place. And so I think that he steps into a situation where he should win 50 games. But will he keep Kevin Durant there, and will he keep Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant happy? I guess that becomes the $1 million question, or in this case, 5-year, $30 million question, or wherever they end up deciding to pay it.
I don't know. I feel like Oklahoma City had this freight train that couldn't be stopped when it was Durant, Westbrook, Ibaka, and Harden. And even though I've never been in love with Scotty Brooks, it just kind of felt like, okay, this is going to be the Western Conference power for the next decade. And little by little, they've fallen short of even getting back to the NBA Finals. And now with a new coach, and as you said, Durant might leave, and trying to test out Billy Donovan, a very unproven NBA coach, obviously. I don't know. I just kind of feel like this is going to be the ultimate what if with the Thunder, and they'll never end up being what they should have been if we would have looked in the crystal ball 5 years ago.
Well, and let's be honest, no matter how good a coach Billy Donovan might be, look at the teams that are in the playoffs this year, and look at Phoenix as well. I mean, you've got 10 teams that are going to be battling right there. The Kings under George Karl are going to be better when George has a whole year with that team. The Nuggets think they're heading in the right direction. You know, as I sit here right now, I'm not ready to commit to that. And so you got a dozen teams vying for those 8 playoff spots. So even with a healthy Durant, a Westbrook for a full year, you still have Ibaka. There's no guarantees of anything. I mean, not even that you make the playoffs, or if you do make the playoffs, that you're a 7 or 8 seed, you're going up against Golden State or a talented Clippers team or the Spurs who just won't go away no matter what. And so he may be a good coach, and it may not matter.
What do you think about Stephen A's coverage of Floyd Mayweather going into their Pacquiao-Mayweather fight?
I think the people that are mad at Stephen A for not asking him about domestic violence issues don't understand who Stephen A is and what he is. Stephen A at one point was a good newspaper writer and a good newspaper columnist. He is now a sports talk personality. These are basically things that didn't exist when you and I were kids, right? These aren't positions, if you will, that news organizations or TV stations or networks had when we were coming up, right? And they exist now. That's what Skip Bayless is. That's what Stephen A has become. And it's a credit to, I guess, sports talk radio, because essentially what they're doing is a sports talk radio show on TV. But it's not his job anymore. He's not Tom Rinaldi, right? He's not John Barr. If you see one of those guys out there, and SportsCenter ran their clips of John Barr trying to ask Floyd at the red carpet of the fight announcement about the domestic violence.
Yeah, but that's suggesting that anybody that has a sports talk show, if they do an interview, doesn't have to ask a tough question.
No, well, I'm not saying you don't have to, but if they don't, you can fault them all you want, but you just have to know what you're dealing with, right? Not everybody is going to approach every interview like they're Edward R. Murrow, unfortunately.
Yeah,
and
but you know that, I mean, whether it's Rome or whether it's Gottlieb or whether it's Coward or anybody that's at the top of this profession, Francesco, whatever it is, those guys are going to ask that question. I think that's a cop-out that Stephen A. doesn't have to just because he's an entertainer.
Okay, I mean, maybe I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. I wasn't expecting it from him. I guess I would have been surprised had he asked it. I mean, he was there basically doing cribs, and it is what it is.
Well, that's a great point. It was cribs. I mean, essentially, it's him being a fanboy and doing cribs with Floyd Mayweather. So maybe it's just that it's packaged incorrectly.
Yeah, probably so. It should have been Stephen A. gets a tour of Mayweather's house. That should have been how they sold it. And then you're like, yeah, just like you could have sent anyone to do that, and it wouldn't have mattered, right? They could have sent Chris Connolly. They could have sent Lindsey Zarniak. They could have sent Shelley Smith. If it's just you get a tour of Floyd Mayweather's house, and that's the way they sell it. But I guess if they're billing it as an exclusive one-on-one with Mayweather, you're expecting them to hit a little harder than they did. And
here's the problem, I think, is that if it's Lindsey Zarniak, nobody expects her to do anything more than just kind of, be the anchor, if you will, the unbiased anchor. If you're Stephen A. and you've got all of these hard opinions and you are always coming at something with these kind of like quote-unquote hot takes, it's kind of impossible to then play the unbiased observer in a situation where you've got like the most polarizing athlete possible.
Yeah, I guess it just becomes a question of, I don't know exactly how you work that in. Oh, man, that's a great watch. By the way, what's up with you and all the domestic violence charges? When do you drop it in? Because the way it was set up, other than when he was chopping wood, the rest was just a tour of the house. When does he sit down and say, hey, so let's get into some, I mean, I guess he could have done that. Let's sit down and let's talk about some harder stuff. And maybe he just never did, or if he did, we didn't see it.
Well, I think it's probably a two-pronged problem. I think, number one, from ESPN standpoint, they, I'm sure, agreed to this all access coming from the Mayweather camp. Hey, you're not going to ask about the domestic violence. I'm positive that went through because, in boxing, all of this stuff is set up on your terms. That's how boxing promotion works. We do this on my terms. So ESPN agreed to it, and that's a problem for ESPN because they just wanted to be the cool, hip network that had Floyd Mayweather's cars. And then number two, Stephen A., I think, comes off as a fanboy. He comes off as a groupie, and this is what he does with big-time athletes in a lot of ways. Sometimes he asks tough questions. A lot of times he comes off as a fanboy, and he was okay being in that spot and not having to ask tough questions as well.
Yeah, but I think then that goes back to where I started. That's what he is. He's no longer somebody who's asking hard-hitting questions. He may have his takes and opinions, a lot of which I think are maybe crafted by producers, only because I've had athletes tell me that Skip Bayless has called them and apologized for a strong take he might have had because that was what the producers and he agreed to stand on. And
that's ridiculous, really. So So every time that Stephen A. and Bayless argue that everything that we argue we really believe in is complete phooey.
Yeah, I think so. And the joke's kind of on us. I mean, some of their opinions can be so far off base or so out there that you're like, really? Come on, there's no way that this is exactly what you believe. And then when I heard that from the player that I heard from, I'm not sure if he's in the NFL right now, but and I'll leave it at that. It didn't surprise me.
I mean, that's really a disgrace. Could you imagine, doing this job and arguing or lambasting somebody or throwing grenades and not really even believing it, just being like, okay, this is what I'm going to disgrace this guy. I'm just going to absolutely tear this guy down, but I don't even really believe it. I mean, that seems embarrassing. Yeah,
but look where Skip Bayless is at. I mean, he still calls LeBron LeBrick. And it's like, dude, he's the best player in basketball and has been for a half dozen years. He's gone to 4 straight NBA finals. He's gone to 5 overall. He's won 2 championships. He's going to win more MVPs. He'll probably win some more rings. He's the best player that we've seen top to bottom since Michael Jordan. With apologies to Kobe, LeBron is just a more top to bottom talented basketball player, physically talented basketball player. And the fact that he still calls him LeBrick because he couldn't call him LeBust after he won championships, it's like, get over it, dude. He's really good. You were wrong. Just move on.
Yeah, I think the ESPNization, ESPN does a lot of good stuff. Don't get me wrong. I think the 30 for 30 is great and Outside the Lines is very good. But they come off so many times as just trying to be cool with athletes. The whole ESPYs thing. Like going to Floyd Mayweather's house and doing this is very SB-like. Let's be in bed with the athletes because it makes us look cooler by extension. And that whole bit, I think, is embarrassing because ESPN doesn't have to stoop to that level. They're the most powerful, sports entity across the board. You don't have to do that type of silly stuff. And you certainly don't have to employ Stephen A. to go up there and be a lapdog for Floyd.
Well, what's interesting is, and plenty of people have discussed the growth of ESPN and just how enormous it is. And while it's good for us when Fox Sports 1 wants to jump in the ring and CBS and NBC Sports Network are obviously trying to grow brands and compete with them, ESPN can really do whatever they want, which is why whenever The Rock has a new movie out, he shows up and does some goofy thing on SportsCenter or, and The Rock's maybe not even a good example because he's an athlete. He played college football and he was a pro wrestler, and say what you want about the scripted nature of pro wrestling, at least it's athletic. But when the other cast of Fast and the Furious show up, if Ludacris shows up on SportsCenter set, how is that helping me get the highlights of the day? So they're trying to be too many things to too many people. But when you're at the top, you can do pretty much whatever you want because everyone's trying to catch you. You don't have to look back and change what you do. I guess you could make the case that you could create an outside the lines type network that had Bob Lee and Tom Rinaldi and John Barr and was an extension of ESPN, but was posed as, ESPN News and not the way they run ESPN News now, but it's all designed at the hard-hitting aspects of news 24 hours a day. And in a lot of ways, I think people have wondered why they haven't done that. But to look at the way ESPN operates, they're serving a lot of masters, and I think it's both good and bad.
Yeah, I think it's problematic. I really do. And again, maybe this is where society is, that we want our pop culture with our sports and our celebrities with our athletes, and athletes are celebrities. But like you said, when a rapper comes into SportsCenter and they've got to kind of try to shoehorn a sports topic into it to work around, like when Nicki Minaj was on the late SportsCenter performing her record, and then she came on to do some sports take. I'm like, I can't even believe I'm watching Nicki Minaj try to fumble through a sports take here.
But let me ask you, because that LA SportsCenter, they probably get more of that, and people just don't necessarily watch it. It comes on late if you're, Central or Eastern time zone, and then it's off kind of early. I guess it goes all the way till 9, but if you don't catch SportsCenter in the morning, you'll miss it. But when Will Ferrell and Kevin Hart stopped by, 2 huge sports fans, guys that have been involved with ESPN in various capacities, whether it be ESPYs or All-Star basketball games or whatever, and real legitimate sports fans, not trying to have to force it like a Nicki Minaj, I don't mind it because I guess SportsCenter in a lot of ways isn't what it was because you already know the score. For the same reason the local newspaper isn't what it was and your local sportscast is even more diluted, I know who won the playoff game, okay? The reason I'm then watching Inside the NBA is because Charles and Kenny and Shaq and Chuck all make me laugh. EJ, they all make me laugh. So when I'm watching SportsCenter, I mean, there's some things that I know I haven't seen that I wouldn't mind seeing, and some of their all-access stuff can be really cool. The quarterback camp with Gruden's always, I think, a good deal, and this Draft Academy, any of those type shows are always going to pique my interest personally. But if Will Ferrell and Kevin Hart are on there, I'm going to be as amused by that because Stan Barrett and Neil Everett do a fine job, but I'm not relying on them to learn about what's going on. Twitter and the Internet as a whole is already taking care of a lot of that.
Brandon Krizstal, he is the host of the Peel the Onion podcast. Is this available on iTunes yet?
It should be by the time this posts. I got an email from iTunes. I just launched it yesterday. I'm basically trying to do what Charlie Rose or Roy Firestone used to do, or what Mark Maron does with his podcast, but with folks in sports. So the first one I did is with Broncos All-Pro corner Chris Harris, who has a great story to tell. And it's just me sitting down talking to guys about not so much hot sports takes, but more just how'd you get to where you are and tell me about your life, and then mixing in what's going on, current events and stuff. So please check it out, ptopodcast.com.
ptopodcast.com. Brandon covered the Denver sports scene better than anybody else. Follow him on Twitter as well, at BK Denver Sports. You can get the latest on the Peel the Onion podcast. Bro, don't tear up when you're peeling that onion, okay?
That's just good advice in general. Absolutely.
Thanks, bud.
Thank you.
Mraz joins me now for the crossover. And Mraz, today I went out to Yankee Stadium to watch your beloved Alex Rodriguez hit number 660. I sat on the bleachers. I did my part. I even scooted down a few rows to make sure I was in prime target range. And what ended up happening? Your boy looked like a total clown.
Today was as lost at the plate as he's been all year, but in a way, in a strange way, I'm kind of happy because you didn't deserve that ball. You're a hater. You're a guy who would have threw the ball back as you portrayed. So
yeah.
Maybe A-Rod felt that karma and said, you know what? True Yankee fan's not in the building today. I'm not hitting this one out.
Let me tell you, there was not a lot of buzz out there for this game or for his at-bats.
It's a Wednesday afternoon.
I know, but it was 660.
But let's be honest. What true fan is out there on a Wednesday afternoon today?
Well, there were plenty of Yankee fans. I mean, of the 18,000 that were there.
There were not a lot of people. You can't get the buzz there. If there's 30,000 in the building, you feel a little electricity.
Yeah, but let me ask you this. If Alex Rodriguez did not have the PED stuff, and this was a legit tying Willie Mays, there would have been far more people out there, right?
No way. I don't think so. Come on. Let's be serious.
660 is the legitimate number in Major League Baseball history.
But it's still a Wednesday afternoon versus the Rays. You can't, all of a sudden, that much more people are going to call out sick to make sure they're at the ballpark today?
To see 660, I think that's legit.
No, he's not breaking bonds.
No, I know, but I think this is where the Yankees actually are validated. These records, his numbers actually don't mean anything even to Yankee fans.
It means something to me.
No, it doesn't.
Well, kind of.
Not really.
I didn't even know he was approaching Willie Mays until last week.
Do you even know who's ahead of him?
Ahead of Willie Mays?
Well, ahead of A-Rod right now.
Ahead of A-Rod would be Mays, would be Aaron, would be Bonds, and Ruth.
Correct.
I nailed it.
And the reason I ask is because there's some kind of sketchy 600 numbers in there that you kind of forget, right? Like, Griffey didn't get to 600, did he?
No, Griffey, he
580?
I think so, 580. I'm pretty sure. No, he might have got to 600.
Sosa's in that 550 range, right?
Right. I think. There's a lot of weird guys from the night you forget. And this is sad because it's like my childhood. You were a little younger, too. I'm not sure. I know I think Griffey did hit 600, I feel like.
I think he might have.
Because I think I was at his 600 first home run, which, as a Red, happened versus the Yankees at the old Yankee Stadium, I think.
Okay, so I'm going to go over this right now.
Okay.
All right, so...
Boy, and you're really hearing things talked about out loud here on the podcast.
This is... Boy, it's terrible. We were terrible on this.
Right, okay.
We were absolutely terrible on this. Okay, so you're right. So Bonds, 762, all-time record.
Right.
Of course, fraudulent. Hank Aaron, 755, of course, the legitimate all-time home run king. Babe Ruth at 714, Willie Mays at 660. So think about that. I mean, when Alex Rodriguez ties A-Rod at 660, he will be with Mays, Ruth, Aaron, Bonds. That's why this should have been legit today, but nobody cared.
Okay.
Griffey did get to 600, 630.
I bet you 601 happened at Yankee Stadium. I'm fairly sure I was there to happen off of Kyle Farnsworth.
Okay, so 630. By the way, today outside, my favorite T-shirt that I saw on anybody today at Yankee Stadium, a Yankee fan that had a T-shirt that said "Anybody but Farnsworth."
Ah, that's a great shirt.
Yeah, it was pretty good. So that's just a bitter Yankee fan right there. Jim Thome at number 7 hit
Forget about Jim Thome.
612. 612 for Jim Thome.
And there's talk of him not even being a Hall of Famer.
Right. Sosa had 609. There's a lot in the 600 club.
Boy, you're really seeing that PED era with those inflated numbers there, huh? When you think about it out loud.
Sosa, Thome, Griffey, Rodriguez, Bonds, all in the 600 club, all from the same era. Then after that is Frank Robinson at 586, McGuire 583, and then after that it's like Harmon Killebrew, Reggie Jackson, then Manny's in there, Rafael Palmeira's in there. I mean, a disgrace.
Boy, McGuire couldn't hang around for 17 more.
So, I mean, that's why I think the Yankees are right. Is that he doesn't deserve the bonus because nobody actually considers these real records anymore.
It's probably fair, but you know what? The Yankees, if he didn't do the PDs, would still be selling the T-shirts, right? They still would be looking to cash in. Of course they would be. I just think if this was, let's say, first of all, there was juice on Sunday night. I'm telling you, the place was packed. Everybody was waiting for him to hit that second one and out.
Yeah, well, it was Subway Series.
But regardless, if that's a night game, there was juice last night, but he didn't play.
Tonight, if this was a night game instead of a day game,
people would have been into it.
Oh, no way.
Yes.
No way.
The Yankees railroaded him, too. They sat him on the night game the night before and played him in the day game because they knew nobody would be there. They didn't want the juice in the building.
Well, that could be. The
Yankees knew.
But there wasn't many more people last night than there was today at the ballpark.
If they're playing anybody but the Rays today, come on. And not to mention...
Why?
And not to mention...
If they play the Orioles, suddenly there's going to be a ton of people in the stands?
I think so. And the Yankee fan was a little deflated after the Tanaka news the night before. Not a lot of people believing anymore.
You're making a lot of excuses here.
I'm not. I just don't like to railroad my boy.
There was a woman wearing a Willie Mays jersey in the outfield with me.
Of course there was.
Yeah, staying strong, baby.
Yeah, like she probably heard her Willie Mays before last week.
Staying strong, man. You know what today was out of the ballpark? It was 20-something-year-olds who are off from college already going out to drink day at the ballpark.
Of course. I'm sure they were drinking at stands at about 10:30 in the morning, stands at the bar outside Yankee Stadium, and just going on and on and on. Yeah, big frat day at the ballpark.
Big frat day at the ballpark. I didn't really have any food out there. I had a hot dog on the street. A
street hot dog outside Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
That's taking a gamble with your life.
Dirty water dog. I'm a big dirty water dog. I've always loved the New York City hot dog.
I love a good New York City hot dog. A dirty water dog outside Yankee Stadium's a little rough.
It's real dirty water.
Oh, yes, it is.
It's the dirtiest of water.
The water's been sitting there for a week.
I put some onions on it. Little onions, little ketchup.
Well, let's see if you make it through a show.
I did. It was really hot, though, out there today, so I had to do the ice cream sandwich.
You went with the ice cream sandwich?
Yeah.
Why not? No helmet cup?
I didn't want because I wanted some cookie in there.
Oh, come on.
What?
I wanted some cookie in there.
No, you get the ice cream sandwich. You know, it was the big round ones.
The Chipwich.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, though. If you go to a ballpark, that's where you get the nice Carvel swirled up in the helmet. And you bring home the helmet. It's a souvenir.
My decision was that or it was going to be the float.
Oh, man, you never go wrong with a good float.
The Pepsi float.
The float is the...
I would rather have a Coke float, but okay.
Well, root beer is obviously the classic,
yes.
Or an orange soda. You go almost a creamsicle float.
I've never had the orange soda. My buddy that I used to go to Shea Stadium with growing up, he used to always go with the orange float.
You know, I would say this. The float, as I tap into my inner foodie here, the float is almost like a piece of carrot cake in the sense that it's a forgotten yet satisfying dessert. Okay. It's always there, but you always feel like there's something better there to have for dessert instead of that. Yeah. So you often, it's almost like you're fullback. You look off the other way and you only go to it in an emergency where, in reality, it should get a lot more looks than it does.
Interesting. So it's a little like Lorenzo Neal.
Exactly. That's what the float is. Just like carrot cake.
Very dependable, Lorenzo
Very
Neal.
dependable. If that's all you got, of course you're eating it, but there always seems to be something that looks a little sexier on the menu.
Yeah.
I think you dropped the ball.
The only thing was it was so hot, I thought I was going to be parched from all that soda.
Okay, but helmet cup, again, helmet cup. The only thing you have to worry about the helmet cup, if it's so hot, sometimes it melts before you get back to your seat.
Yeah.
Especially if you're sitting in those metal bleachers. I mean, that's a lightning rod waiting to happen.
Let me tell you, it was hot out there. It was real, real hot. There was a guy crossing his legs. That was not cool.
Oh, you had a leg crosser in the bleachers?
Crosser. Yeah, I took a picture of this and posted
awkward.
on Twitter. Really bad. Really, really bad.
That's awkward.
Yeah, I don't understand that. Crossing the legs and then turning around to talk to people while the legs are crossed. I mean, watch the game.
That's sad.
Real bad. So anyway, it was warm out today here in New York, warm out across the Northeast, and this weekend should be also very nice. And that brings us to one of the great sporting weekends of the year, which is coming up on Saturday. Because not only do we always have the Kentucky Derby in the middle of Major League Baseball season and NBA and NHL playoffs.
First Sunday in May.
But we never have a fight like this also going on, Mayweather-Pacquiao.
Right.
So what is your Saturday going to look like? Because
this is a big Saturday.
It's a big Saturday, and I've already had conversations about what we're going to do, where we're going to do it, what we're going to do. You got to be on point here on Saturday.
Right. Well, I had planned for a while since this fight was announced to have kind of my birthday happens 2 weeks after, to kind of do a pseudo birthday bash, kind of order the fight, bring the big screen TV outside, fire pit, little beer pong tables, the coolers, grill.
Boy.
And to make it like start with the Derby, go into whatever the night thing is with the TV on, and then run into the fight.
What time is the Derby going to be?
The Derby, I think, tees off at about 6:20, but I'm inviting everybody over about 5 o'clock.
Okay, so around dinner time is when the Derby goes off East Coast time.
Exactly. So everybody casually have the beers, get ready, place your bets for the Derby. I'm sure there'll be some, kind of shady pools going on in the backyard, if you will.
Yes.
And then we'll grill up a little bit with the dinner, and then away we go at night. Whatever happens at night, I'm sure there'll be some NBA, NHL playoff action on in the background before the fight. However, my day's going to get started earlier, because I got to go dual TV before I get going outside, because I'm going to have Rangers-Caps Game 2 at 12:30.
12:30 Eastern. That's 9:30 Pacific.
That's what starts the day. And
that's big.
So that's big. I'm going to have a second TV like I would do with the NFL with the Red Zone, except I'm going to have the NFL draft flipping between that. And as a Yankee fan, I get Yankees-Red Sox that day, too.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if you're in New York, I know a lot of people probably won't care about the Rangers, Caps, or Yankees-Red Sox, but that just even adds to what Saturday is.
So let me just throw this out at you as well. We have a potential of 2 Game 7s in the NBA on Saturday.
Oh, is that right? The Nets would be Sunday, right?
Bulls-Bucks, which could go 7 because the Bucks have a home game in 6. Spurs-Clippers Game 7.
Oh, man.
Spurs-Clippers could be Game 7.
But if you play Spurs-Clippers, like, let's say, tip that at 8 o'clock, you figure the game wraps up 10:30, 11, the fight doesn't tee off till 11:30. That's a big boy night.
Wow, it's a big boy night.
That's a big boy night.
That's a big boy night.
This has to be the best, non-NFL exclude, because you could always say, well, an NFL day is as good as it gets. If you take out NFL football or even college football, this has to be as good as it gets sports-wise in years.
Well, for variety, because you've got horse racing, you've got basketball playoffs, hockey playoffs, a fight, and you've got baseball.
And the NFL draft, still, if you care about those rounds. I know the day 3, but still, it's unbelievable.
I mean, here's the thing. I'm a little worried. I don't want to be too obliterated by the time we get to the fight.
I know that's a pace yourself day.
Because if you start drinking during the Rangers game,
I already told myself I can't do it.
12 hours up until when the fight's going to be.
I thought about that. I'm like, it'd be great. I'll sit down, have a couple brews. I go, you know what? Let me stick with the waters and iced teas early. Let me not begin, if you will, the casual drinking until the Derby time. A couple casual brewskis before the Derby, kind of roll, and then when the fight goes on, a little shot per round, and away we go.
Because it could be ugly by the time
That's a late night. Because when you think about a sporting event, 8 o'clock. This thing ain't got to start till 11:30 Eastern. So you're 12 hours in front of a TV there.
Yeah, the fight might not go off until midnight.
Yeah, and I'm going to start with the Rangers at noon.
That's what I'm talking about.
God, that's a long day. It's a great day.
And then a quick turnaround the next morning, because Sunday morning, the Young Guns have a 9 a.m. kickoff.
And a biggie, too. Can't fall back to 500 here as we try to put it's a game for first place, 2-2-1 teams.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Who are we playing?
The Monstars.
The Monstars.
Little Space Jam takeout. I give him credit for the name.
The Monstars.
Yeah, so this is going to be big. This is a big weekend.
Well, that really caps it off.
I think so. I mean, it's ironic that that's starting after the Mayweather-Pacquiao. A lot of fans probably pulling all-nighters right to the Central Islip Courthouse fields for Young Guns football.
This was such a disaster that you had our flag football game scheduled for a 9 a.m. kick after Mayweather-Pacquiao.
Yeah, it was strategic.
Real disgrace.
I have a family party at noon on Sunday, a communion. So the only way to get that in without, basically annoying the family was I said weeks ago, we need this week to be at noon, not putting 2 and 2 at 9, not putting 2 and 2 together, that this would be after the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight.
I mean, and knowing our team, the amount of drinkers we have.
A lot of them will be by my side, too, and I'm not going to be exactly coach of the year monitoring it.
I'm telling you, this is going to be our ugliest effort coming up on Sunday.
I basically going to have like a stick poking people awake in the backyard to go, guys, we got to get to the field.
It's not going to be pretty. This is a real bad mistake. But
you figure the other team, if they're all sports fans too, probably a lot of them doing the same thing.
Yeah, but do the Monstars have experience playing with one another? Because we're still a team that's gelling.
That's a very good point. I'm not sure. I'm not sure where the Monstars fit there. I haven't watched a lot of tape yet. I have to get into that probably Friday.
It should be noted, between you and I, the DA show accumulated 2 catches on Sunday, a touchdown, an interception that was called back. And
Boy, count that interception, huh?
And out of the back of, because it jammed my finger. I can barely feel my finger. And a catch out of the back of the end zone that was incomplete.
And a big holding penalty.
What do you mean? I didn't have a
holding. I had a holding penalty when I held the guy's shirt and wouldn't pull the flag.
Oh, yeah, right. That was on the interception return.
Yeah, I should have just let him go.
It's hard. Why do they call that a hold if you were trying to tackle him?
Yeah, I don't understand it. But point being, if I let him go into the end zone, we would have got the ball back down 8. So that was kind of a bad job by me.
Oh,
that's been haunting me all week. I haven't let that out of the bag, but now I will.
Because for those that don't know, we lost by 8.
For those who don't know, as in everybody.
Right. For those not following the Long Island Flag football standings and scoreboard.
Right. We lost 21-13, but that interception set up the touchdown to go up 8. We instead got the ball back with 30 seconds left. Had I let him score, we would have got the ball back at the 2-minute warning.
Wow, I didn't even realize that.
So that
was a bad day for you. Really bad.
Wasn't a good day.
Because we got run all over, and you never adjusted as our defensive coordinator. You never pushed up our defense.
I didn't strategically do the defense right. Well, forget that. It was also a bad day because I sent everybody to the wrong field to begin with.
So that was the first part.
Right, that was the first part. It was a long day for the coach.
Yeah. You haven't had a great... See, you've been real lucky with the DJ signing. DJ is our Terrell Owens, and he's taking the top off defense. And he was the game changer.
Every GM and coach needs a little bit of luck. Jerry Reese is fired if he doesn't draft Odell Beckham. Probably the same thing with me.
Okay, but outside of getting DJ, who's like 6'4", runs like a friggin' puma, and has hands like T.O., outside of him coming for week 1 and helping us scoring a touchdown in every game, basically, being the best athlete on the field no matter what. Outside of that, you've had mistake after mistake after mistake. You've sent out too few guys to the defense. You haven't been able to adjust.
We're 2-1.
We had no safety on the first drive.
We're 2-1.
Week 1. You sent people to the wrong field.
I sent Bisegli out there week 2. He got a pick.
That's true.
All right, so listen, we're 2-1. We'll right the ship. A big hangover Sunday win on Sunday.
I don't know. I'm a little worried about this, and I'm worried about too much confidence, overconfidence with this team, with our team.
Cockiness.
Let's face it, there was a little cockiness on Sunday.
You know what? But let me get that swagger back now. I think we got a little reality check, and let's get everybody playing with swag.
Why don't we ever play a game that doesn't come down to the last?
We're not good enough yet. We're not good enough yet. We're going to be playing these tight games.
We're just not good enough.
Yeah, but we're better than we thought. We do have 2 wins under our belt.
Which means we're automatically qualified for the playoffs.
Right, which is also a good point, too, because the more losses we get, the more we slide into potentially the D playoffs, where maybe we're beating up on crap teams and we get a cheapy Super Bowl. Wouldn't that be nice?
So maybe best case scenario is we lose out and then win the D-League Super Bowl?
We know we're already in, yeah. And then we rally versus all the bad teams we were playing earlier in the year, and then there we go. Parade, Canyon of Heroes.
Where would our parade be?
I don't know. Sunrise Highway on Long Island?
Maybe right down here in Hudson Square for the CBS Sports Radio
That'd be
studios.
great. And then a big, they hand us the keys to Chipotle on Varick Street.
Yeah,
that would be nice.
That would be amazing.
Oh, man, I could really go for a bowl now.
That would be really, really amazing. How's Planet Steve-O doing?
He's okay. I mean, he's going to join me on this next side. He's Planet Steve-O. You never know what you're going to get out of him. It's just, some days I want to yell at him till the cows come home, but you know what? He makes me laugh. I'm very indifferent towards Planet Steve-O.
You're indifferent?
I'm indifferent because, some days he really has me laughing. Other days I look at him and I can't take him anymore.
He was working on 2 hours sleep on yesterday's show.
And it showed.
It showed. He was delirious.
After the show, by the way, for those who looked for the full show podcast, he put up 4 minutes instead of 4 hours.
He uploaded our podcast of 4 minutes.
4 minutes.
How do you not notice that that's wrong?
Yeah, and it takes a little longer to upload 4 hours, as most people could probably imagine. This went up because when I went to look at it, it went up at about 30 seconds as opposed to 9 minutes. So you would think, Steve-O was just like, oh, great, it went quicker today. Dope.
He's been doing it for 4 months. He didn't notice.
No, he didn't notice. His head was in the clouds. He was, he's a dope. Let's be honest. Steve-O's a dope. He's a total dope. I don't know what to tell you.
I don't know what to make of this guy.
Put it this way. I thought Christopher Columbus was a pilgrim. Steve-O is the biggest idiot on the show.
Well, in a different way.
In a different way.
He's flighty. He's an airhead.
He's an airhead. I'm just not book smart.
Yeah.
I got more street savvy.
He was telling me how he was trying to fall asleep because he was on 2 hours. I mean, it was disturbing. It was lewd. It was too much information.
Way too much information. I eavesdropped a little in that conversation.
I'm like, okay, Steve, I got it.
He doesn't get that.
He goes, you're usually able to fall asleep after that. I go, yeah, all right, I'm going to leave here.
Well, now the listeners can figure that part out. I mean,
it was
good
disgusting.
Lord. Ugh. That's enough Steve-O for me.
All right, so you got Steve-O coming up here?
Yes.
The Permission Granted podcast. Subscribe to it on iTunes and on SoundCloud. The DA Show on CBS Sports is what you can search, and you'll find it. It's different from our normal show podcasts. It's different from our 4-minute podcast that sometimes Steve-O uploads thinking that it's a full show. All right, so check it out there. Also, check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/The DA Show, and enjoy this sports weekend. It's going to be great.
All right, welcome into Side B of the Permission Granted podcast. I am the executive producer of The DA Show, Sean Mraz, joined this week by associate producer of The DA Show, Steve-O, Planet Steve-O, Moralia, Steve-O, Bad Mood Steve-O. How you doing, Steve?
I'm not in a bad mood at all. I'm just tired.
Yeah, and now we're going to jump right into this, and I'm sure everybody really cares about your
Nobody
sleep. Or what
cares.
is, but we get ready to tape here. I'm excited to do the podcast with you, as James has now done it for a couple weeks in a row.
No, he hasn't. I did it 2 weeks ago.
I don't believe so, but
Well, go back and check.
I'm trying to get inside your head, and you show up and go, I don't know if I have anything today. I'm on 2 hours sleep.
I got nothing today.
Okay, but why are you on 2 hours
I got
sleep?
the bags of dark circles under my eyes.
Yeah, Steve.
I'm beat. I'm just beat.
Why are you on 2 hours sleep?
I couldn't sleep last night. I was restless. I've got a big trip coming up to Boston tomorrow. So I think I'm partially very excited about that. I'm going to go see the Red Sox and Toronto Blue Jays play. I'm going to play a round of golf out there with a good friend from high school. And I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. Well, now here's a couple things with that. You're making a trip to Fenway, which I think is great. I love a good baseball trip.
Love Fenway.
And you've been to Fenway before.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the Yankees, you're a Yankee fan. They play in Fenway this weekend. Why not go then?
I actually have to come back here and work the Yankee game on Friday. I won't be on the DA show.
Right. Okay.
Because I was asked
Big
to
loss for us, huh?
Yeah, big loss. I mean, nobody brings the humor sensibly priced like I do.
No, of course not. Oh, so you have to come back.
Yeah, I have to come back and work the game here from our studios.
Work from the studios? What do you mean?
Well, I'm going to be producing the Spanish broadcast of the Yankee game.
Boy, they're really tapping into the deep well.
What do you mean tapping into the deep well?
You're leaving the DA show to work the Yankee Spanish broadcast for the night on Friday night.
I was asked to do that.
So
yes.
That's where we rank on your totem pole. You'd rather work Yankee Spanish broadcast over the DA show.
Not true. False.
Well, there has to be a reason.
Yeah, I was asked to do this a couple weeks ago, and I told them that I would check and see with our executive producer if that was possible, and I got the go-ahead on it. It's a one-time thing, essentially. I've worked on the broadcast before. I know how it goes. So they asked if I could settle in for just a day. So I told them sure.
This seems like do you know any Espanol?
Un poquito.
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. Do you need to know Espanol to work on the Spanish broadcast?
You need to have a sense. I know some Spanish.
You need to have a sense.
Yeah, you need to have a sense of it. I could give like calls in Spanish, and I would know what they're saying and roughly what they were talking about, but I can't speak full-blown Spanish.
So they look around, they go, okay, we need somebody to sub in on the Yankee Spanish broadcast.
We need the gringo.
Right, we need somebody with a little sense of Espanol. And we go, let's get Steve Moralia.
Yep.
I mean, do you realize how crazy that is?
It sounds a little crazy, but, listen, that's where I got my start. When I first started with the Yankees, I was on the Spanish broadcast, man. But until the fly, but until the vas, se va, y se fuere quadrangular.
What was that?
See, that's a home run call right there.
Who hit it on that one?
Let's say, who do you want? Who do you want to hit it?
Let's say there's a text message from Mark Teixeira.
Con Mark Teixeira.
Boy, Steve, that's not bad. You even got the rolling R's there.
Oh, yeah, I got the rolling R's.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I don't understand where this comes from.
You know?
Okay, all right. So now does the Spanish Yankee broadcaster give a little like Sterling? Do they do a little, or is it more just standard down the line?
Well, when I was on the broadcast, it was a different broadcaster. The guy's name was Beto Villa. He really had a lot to do with my upbringing in radio, essentially. He was very picky about things being organized.
He really brought along a prodigy.
Hey, listen, he called me his American son is what he called me. I mean, he had an affinity for me.
And he must have been so disappointed.
No, I'm telling you what. He still calls me on a weekly basis, I would say, and we touch base, and I pick up little bits and pieces of Spanish from him. So I understand baseball in Spanish. I couldn't give somebody directions on the street. I mean, obviously I know derecha and izquierda, but left and right, left.
I have no idea what you're saying. I'm amazed. You could be lying to me right now.
Yeah,
but
no, I'm telling you the truth.
That's unbelievable. So now it's interesting you say that you're ditching us to go do a Spanish broadcast for the Yankees.
Sorry. I mean, just a day. Just for a day.
You have a very, very big week we find out coming up in a couple of weeks that we're going to mention here.
Boy.
For those of you who listen to the DA show, they know that I am the executive producer. And for a while, if you listen back on the overnights, Kenny Brock, whenever I would have to be out or take vacations or anything like that, because we are entitled to our days, Kenny Brock would slide over from the assistant producer, the board op, the music director's chair, and produce the show. Now, we haven't really gotten a crack at this since the DA show is reincarnated. I haven't used any days. I left early one day, which, were you here that night, Steve-O?
I was.
Okay, and you had to slide in for the last 2 hours of the show.
Last 3 hours, let's get it straight.
Okay.
You banged out an hour an hour into the
I
thing,
was on my deathbed.
You're lucky that the fail happened in the first hour because I was still awfully green at that point.
Okay, well now this is what happens here. So now I will be taking a week off. I'm going to redo my honeymoon in St. Thomas and on the back end fly into Florida for a cousin's wedding. I'm looking forward to it. This is in 2 weeks now. I'm leaving. Good vacation, good to clear the head and stuff like that. I'll be into it. Now, that being said, James Ward, our other assistant producer, will also be headed to a different family wedding himself, leaving the bench, if you will, on the mothership rather bare. Put it this way, a couple guys going on the DL for a week, and the cupboard's bare. This means that Steve-O, who only works on the show 3 nights a week, will work 5 nights a week on the show that week, doing my job all 5 nights when we get Billy Jacalone on the assistant producer's chair, who's our utility infielder off the bench, if you will.
Yep.
So we're going to get a full week on the mothership of Planet Steve-O in the producer's chair with Billy Jacalone on the side. Planet Steve-O, your thoughts heading into this very important week for you?
I take life day by day, Mraz. You don't know that about me by now. 1 foot in front of the next.
Boy.
That's how I handle things.
Well, this is going to be a problem,
I'm planned,
though, Steve-O.
I'm organized, and I take things day by day.
But you need to have some sense of it. There's already been some rumblings in the locker room whether I should get ahead and try to book some spots for you.
You probably should.
But
I would recommend that.
That's not what I want to hear out of you.
I would highly recommend that. I mean, I'm not saying that I can't do the job. I'm just saying, look, I'm used to booking 4 shows in 2 days because I produce on the weekend. So
very
it's
poorly, by the way.
Oh, come on. You don't listen on the weekends. How can you say poorly?
I read the tweets.
You don't read the tweets.
Okay, so, but Steve-O, this is a big deal. I would argue, now you said that Spanish broadcaster brought you on, that you were like his American son.
Yes.
And that was a big moment in your career. I would argue this week coming up could be the biggest moment in your career to date.
I would disagree. Highly disagree.
You disagree with that?
Yeah, I think it'll be like any other week.
Why?
Because I know what I'm doing here. I'm not worried about it. I think that it'll be gravy.
Do you have any sort of plan? Because you keep saying that you
take things
day by day.
A plan? I mean, geez, it's a month away.
It's not a month away. It's 2 weeks away, Steve-O. Do you have any idea what I do over there while you're over there?
Oh, yeah, I know what you do.
Do you have any idea how to cut an epic fail together?
You eat and you eat.
I don't eat like that. So now, those of you who listen to the show and always wonder, what does Mraz do? What does Mraz? Mraz does a lot. He books these great guests that you hear, and I can only imagine that the type of guest is going to go downhill when Steve-O takes over.
Well, listen.
Unless I am booking them a week ahead of time.
Well, we'll see what happens.
Well, we'll see what happens. So again, you're really shooting low. Second of all, I always make that epic fail.
I'm not shooting low. I can do the epic fail.
Are you going to keep on top of Billy with the reads?
Oh yeah, I'll be on top of him. You know what? I'll even take care of the reads on top of everything else.
Steve-O, this is a big time job for you here.
It's not that big of a job, dude.
It's a job. You go off into space way too much.
No, I don't.
You're going to be
you
focused.
Think that I do. I'm always focused.
And not to mention, as part of this, you're going to be working 9 straight days with your weekend on the back end there. Will that wear you down? Because
that'll wear me down.
The last day that you work on a 5-day stretch, which is always
I'm going to try to
night.
finagle that where I come back in for the Friday shift and then get off 2 weekends, actually. That's how I'm going to try to pair the week.
Is that right?
Days. That's what I'm going to try to do. Will it happen? Probably not. I'll probably be here for 9 straight days, but we'll see what happens.
So there's not the slightest bit of nervousness with you that you could fail this problem?
No, I don't get nervous about stuff like this, no.
No. What do you think will be the hardest part of filling in for me?
Probably dealing with DA one-on-one. Yeah.
Dealing with DA one-on-one.
Without you being the
buffer?
The rather large buffer.
Well, I'll say this. We've really built some good chemistry here with you where you've taken on a snarky role in the show, which I think is what we were looking for when we started. Well, you're Planet Steve-O. You're you never know where we get the wild card. We've played off that.
Maybe aloof, not snarky. I don't think snarky is what you would call it.
Even with your mistakes, you've managed to be just dumb enough as you drop. What are you doing?
I'm trying to fix this Alex Rodriguez.
Steve-O is basically playing with a starting line figurine here, and he's breaking it, not paying attention to me here.
No, I'm listening. I can multitask.
See, this is what I mean about Steve-O. He goes off into space. And this is what I'm worried about, Steve-O. You've managed in every little bit to go off into space and kind of crack your own role in the show that DA doesn't even really get that angry with you.
He gets angry. I can see it in his eyes.
I don't know about that. DA.
You know what it is? He liked the fact that I took over the instant replay, which we talked about a couple weeks ago on the podcast.
Or maybe you were on a couple weeks ago.
I was on a couple weeks ago. There it is.
Comes full circle.
It does.
Yeah, you're so full on that. So,
hey, how about my Yankees, man? Jeez, first place in the AL East.
Let's not get off track here. Back on track. This is what I mean. So you've managed to really not have DA get frustrated, get you angry with you. Are you worried that this week of you producing and being, quote unquote, exposed maybe to your flaws?
No, exposed to my flaws. No, listen.
Will hurt your relationship.
I am who I am.
And that's not great.
That's what you get. You get what you get with me.
Yeah, what we get with you is not any good.
What are you talking about? Now you're just hurting my feelings.
I'm sure. Steve-O, in the course of the last 5 minutes in discussing this, you've managed to break a figurine that's not yours and go, how about my Yankees?
It was already broken. I know, because I saw a highlight up on the TV out there. So.
See, that's what I mean. We have to lock you down. We have to get you focused here, Steve-O. This is a big week. This is the biggest week of your career to date.
It's not the biggest week of my career,
You're producing the DA show for 5 days.
Not the biggest week of my career.
What was the biggest week of your career? Any sentence that starts with you don't know. It has to be.
I'd have to think about it. I think that you prematurely labeling this as the biggest week of my career is a mistake.
Most important week? Everything could fall apart for you here on the show if you mess this up.
It won't. I won't let it happen.
Are you?
I'm extremely confident that I won't let it happen.
Really? Because you're not really reeking of confidence.
Like the song says, the show must go on.
Oh, I'll tell you another thing, Steve-O. For those of you who listen to the show, you might notice, as ironic as this is, I don't often eat on the show. I eat before the show. Steve-O and James will have about 1 million meals during the show. Steve-O, you're going to have to not have your meals during the show. You're going to have to get in my routine.
False.
What do you mean false?
Another false statement by you.
You can't eat during the show.
I will be eating during the show. I cannot break that routine. Listen, my bowel movements are very particular, and I need to stay on track.
That is so heinous.
I need to stay on track.
So
that's part of it.
I don't even know where to go with that.
Well, what do you want me to tell you? That's what it is. I mean, that's what it comes down to. I've been on this track now for about 2.5 years, and I'm not changing it just because I'm producing for somebody else.
How many text messages will you send to me in St. Thomas?
Oh, I won't. I'll leave you alone.
Really? There won't be one problem?
No, there will be no problem.
Will I come back to any disaster?
Oh, you could. I mean, it depends on your definition of a disaster, I guess.
What do you think is the worst thing that could happen while I'm gone?
The worst thing that
could happen while you're producing that could actually happen, like that is possible could happen.
Listen, I don't know if Billy Jack alone could handle it over Christmas when we were gone, then I can handle this, all right? There's no doubt.
Am I unfairly ripping into you here?
Yes.
You're not happy with this?
No.
Come on, Steve.
I'm not happy. I told you. I said you've hurt my feelings before.
Give us a little more Spanish.
Un poquito.
Okay. All right.
Hold on. You want me to give you a Spanish call? Let's see here.
Another one.
All right. Durante la fly, durante la vas, se va. No puede coger con la derecha. No, not it. I'm trying to think. How do I say right fielder again?
You're getting pretty good, Steve-O.
I mean, my Spanish isn't bad in terms of that. No puede coger means you could not make the play.
And you've
obviously.
marinated on this for about 20 minutes now since we started the podcast.
No, I haven't marinated on anything. Yeah, so I mean, my Spanish isn't bad. I picked a lot of it up. I'll give you a strikeout. How about that?
All right, here we go. Planet Steve-O does Spanish broadcasting.
Here it is. Y esto se está cocinando. That means like the
you don't even know what it means.
Chef, no, I know what that means. It means like, this one's like they're cooking it up here. Y esto se está cocinando.
All right, well, folks, that's been Spanish baseball lessons with Planet Steve-O in one of the oddest.
Strike tirándole se va.
When you sit down with Planet Steve-O, you're never going to know what you're going to get. That was one of the oddest side Bs we've ever done. I don't even know what just happened, but you're going to get a lot of that in 2 weeks producing the DA show.
Yes, you will.
So that's going to wrap it up here for side B. Steve-O, thank you very much.
Mraz, it's always fun. It's
have
always
fun
a
in
pleasure.
Boston.
I will.
All right,
I'll hit them straight, too.
All right. Okay, then. All right, well, that's going to wrap it up here for Side B.
In the golf, of course.
Remember, you can check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/The DA Show, CBSSportsRadio.com for all our show stuff, but the podcast at SoundCloud.com. Check us out. Just search The DA Show CBS Sports on iTunes as well. You can follow me on Twitter at MrazCBS. You cannot follow Steve-O on Twitter because he's a dope and doesn't realize it's 2015. And, yeah, that's pretty much it. Enjoy the draft weekend. Enjoy the fight, Mayweather-Pacquiao. Have a great weekend.